Okay, this is Richard White here again, tying this time a very simple fly, a modified version of a hare's ear nymph. A friend of mine asked me to tie this and make a video, so I'm going to start by using a piece of actual just rabbit skin, rabbit fur, and cutting off and this rabbit fur is a little bit on the reddish brown side, naturally colored, and I'm going to pull off like half a matchstick thickness to use for the tail. Pluck out any excess. I'm going to measure it against the length, and that works fairly well. I'm going to clip just a little bit off the base. Then I'm going to lash that down to the top of the shank. Now, using a gray thread here, and I'm going to get my thread, bring it down, clip it off, lay the bit of rabbit fur on the top of the shank, and while pinching it, bind it to the top of the shank. Go all the way forward, come all the way back, and that way I know it's not going anywhere. And that's a little bit shorter tail than I would like, so I'm going to add a little bit more, which you can always do. You can always go back and add, at least at this point. I'm going to make that just a little bit longer, a little bit fuller. And the fullness will help build up the bulk of the fly as well. And I'll come back, and that's a little bit more of the look I wanted for the tail. You can see. Alright, so now fly needs some sort of a rib. In this case, I'm going to go with a bit of copper wire. This copper wire is sort of an orange color. I'm going to lay it along the side of the shank. I'm going to go forward and go back, binding it down. Keep it back off the tail. Now I'm going to dub the body. And to do that, again, I'm going to go back to my piece of rabbit fur, and I'm going to pluck some off. And in this case, I'm going to trim the bases a little bit because some of the skin came away with it, and I don't want that. Then I'm just going to randomize the fur here a little bit, just so it'll dub a little better. And then dub that onto my thread. Start by twisting. Rabbit is very soft, it's easy to dub. Slide it up, give it another good twist, and then once it binds onto the shank, it's much easier to finish dubbing, finish wrapping. I can come forward, come fairly far forward, completing the abdomen. Now I'll take my wire, wrap my wire over to get a little bit of ribbing. It'll help hold everything in place and also just give a little bit of flash. Wrap it a few times forward, bring it up, forward, about 90 degrees to the thread. That'll already lock it down. Then I can come over the thread, over the wire with the thread and go back. Then I can helicopter off the wire. Now I'm going to go back to the very front of the abdomen so I can start the thorax. For the thorax, I need a thorax cover, so I'm going to start with just some leftover pheasant tail that I had, and I'm going to lay that on the top of the hook shank, and I'm going to turn the hook slightly towards me to make it easier to see if it's truly on top, and bind it on top, go forward, go back again to the beginning of the abdomen so I can define my thorax. Now build up dubbing for the thorax. So again, I'm going to come back to my rabbit, pluck out some of the fur, and then dub that fur onto my thread. And I want as usual, I want the thorax a little bit thicker than the abdomen. So I don't mind if it's a little bit looser, a little bit fuller. Now, here I'm going to want some sort of simple legs on here. So I'm going to bring my thread back over the top. That'll help hold everything in place. And that'll then let me bind down a small grouse feather, but you could use almost any soft hackled feather. I'm going to get that small grouse feather. I'm going to pull off all the soft, fluffy fibers. Then I'm going to grab the tip. So I'm going to tie this in by the tip, pull back the other fibers, and turn this so the tip faces the front of the fly, and bind that down. Once I've done that, I can clip off any excess. Then I'm going to wind this fiber while folding it backward to make the legs. And it's not going to take very many turns. And each time I wind, I'm going to use my fingers to fold fibers backward as much as I possibly can. Then bind that in with my thread. Come forward. Now, to cut off the extra bit of the feather, I put my finger up against the thread, pushing it away. That way I can grab, pushing the thread away with my finger, holding on to the shank with my thumb and another finger. Then I can easily clip off the excess without clipping my thread. Now fold all those fibers backward. Make sure they're well bound down. Now I need to bring over the wing case. Now again, I'm going to turn this slightly so I can really get the best possible look at the back of the fly. Fold that down over, making sure it's firmly on the back, and then a number of turns in front of there. Lift up the pheasant tail, come in front of it, then I can clip off any excess. A few turns of thread to clean the head up. Come further back. Add some head cement to the thread. I find this is an easier way to get head cement on, especially for smaller flies. Then whip finish. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 should be plenty. Pull it tight, snug it up, and clip it off. Then you have a finished fly. Now this one, I rather like the legs long. I'm not sure it looks as realistic, but it has more movement in the water. And I find that fish react better if the fly just looks that bit more alive. So that's just a very simple version of a hare's ear. Hope you appreciate it. Thank you very much for watching.